Hello, my name is Sharon Cawthon, and welcome to another episode of Collective Stories. Today, this is the channel where we talk about apartment living because everything that happens in the world happens in apartments. From birth to growing up, getting your education, falling in love, falling out of love, all the things that happen to you in your first home in apartments. And we also pull the curtain back on management. So partly about residents and the weird, wacky, and wonderful things that happen, and also about managers and when they sometimes hit it out of the park and other times fumble badly. So today's story is it took place about 30 years ago in an older property in the southeast. And this property had a water line break that had happened underneath the ground. So when those happen, it takes longer to fix. And at this property in particular, because the lines were so old, every time the plumbers came out to repair them, they would have to bring the water, turn it back on really slowly so that it didn't cause too much pressure at another part in the lines and cause that to break too. And that had happened in its past many times. Well, the manager had only been at this property for like 2 to 3 days, brand new, still learning who everyone's name was and what they did. And residents were calling all day long saying, my water is brown. When is this going to be fixed? And the standard answer was, they're working on it right now. Once they have repaired the line, it will take a little bit of time for the water to run clear again, but it should be back to normal very soon. That's a hard thing to hear because if you're the resident, you're trying to cook dinner or you shower, you've got dye in your hair, whatever it is, that's not the answer you want to hear. You want to be able to live in your apartment without this disruption. Nevertheless, that was the situation and that's what everyone was dealing with. And as polite as the office staff and maintenance staff were trying to be, people got a little hot under the collar. Well, later that afternoon, a resident came in and he is carrying like a baby food jar full of gross brown water. And he's really upset. And so he's talking to this new manager and he says, listen, I've got a baby. I have a little child. I need to be able to bathe them, to make my baby's bottles. When is this going to be okay? This has been going on for a while now. And that piqued her curiosity because she asked him how long had it been going on, and it seemed to her that it was happening for longer than it should have been. But nevertheless, he said, would you please just come to my apartment and let me show you for myself what is happening? And she said, yes, I will come to your apartment. I will come and look at it. It would have been so easy to give that standard answer, but she didn't in this case. She didn't know enough about this property, and she was curious enough to see for herself. So she goes to the resident's apartment. He leads her to the bathroom. She sees a baby and the little boy that he had, and in the bathroom he reaches for the faucet and turns on the one on the left, which is the hot water. And naturally, just like he said, brown gross water is pouring out of the left faucet. And as the manager stood there listening to what he had to say, something just started tickling the back of her mind because something wasn't right. When the water was coming out of the sink, it was brown and rusty. But the water in the toilet bowl right beside the sink was clear. And that was the clue that she needed to solve this problem. The only reason the water would be clear in the toilet and rusty in the sink is because they were running hot water in the sink and only cold water goes to the toilet. This was not a problem with a broken water main that was taking a long time to clear the debris. This was a bad water heater. So this resident's problem was easy to diagnose once she was actually in the apartment, could see for herself, could have that incongruity sort of itch at her brain a bit. And she was able to say, sir, it appears to me that's not the problem. I think I know what's wrong. And she was able to get a new water heater ordered, get him some bottled water in the meantime to get him by and solve his problem. And he went from being a very, very angry resident to being one who felt heard and who appreciated that his problem got really solved. He didn't get passed around with the platitude of it's about the water line break. And I guess the moral of this story is that it's sometimes the right answer is because you get out from behind your desk and you say yes. And I understand that there are 5,000 things that are all due yesterday that are on your desk. There's a lot on the manager's time. And truthfully, it's something that maybe somebody else should have figured out. But in this case, not only did she figure it out, but she set an example for her brand new staff. They'd been on the property for a while. They were worn down by this experience. But she set an example for all those who worked with her that we say yes. We do everything in our power to really understand the problem and to solve the problem instead of falling back on what we think we already know. So my encouragement to you today is to remain curious, to be willing to say yes. Go to the apartment, let them show you firsthand what it is that they're struggling with, and help your team learn to do the same. And regardless, whether your resident lives in a property where the rent is low and the property's old and a little worn around the corners, or whether they're living in a brand new property, they deserve excellent service. And excellent service didn't cost anything extra. So that's my encouragement to you today. Stay curious and say yes. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back again soon with another episode of Collective Stories.